Good evening and welcome everybody to Wednesday Night Live from Courtroom Confidential, the fastest growing true crime news channel on YouTube. I hope you all are doing well. I am very excited about this evening. We've got a lot of fun stuff for you. I asked Kaylin how she's feeling. She says she feels juiced. I feel the same way. And then I got a little nervous because I saw Jody Arrington, one of our faithful subscribers, said that Mercury is in retrograde. And that scared me, mainly because I didn't quite understand what it meant, but it sounded ominous. So I hope everyone's well. I don't know if that means that you have to shelter or if that you have to close the windows, but you're on notice. Mercury's in retrograde. Thank you for that, Jody. Just to introduce myself, because I know that on these Wednesday night streams, we sometimes get a lot of new folks, and I welcome you all. My name is Joshua Ritter. I am a former prosecutor with the LA District Attorney's Office. I was there for about 10 years. Now I'm a private attorney doing criminal defense, and this is Courtroom Confidential, where we try to give you both sides of the courtroom. Like I said, a lot of fun stuff. Good to see a lot of familiar faces, names, I should say. Joy W. and Afton and Simi Sharp and Jody, everybody for being here. Thank you so much. Marjorie, thank you, who's a Grizzly, it looks like. Big love to the Grizzlies. And Laura for gifting memberships already. That's so fantastic. Thank you, Laura Waldy. Really appreciate it. Here's what's happening this evening. In about 30 minutes time, hopefully before then, Gavin Fish will be joining us. He is tremendous. If you don't know about Gavin, you're about to find out this evening. But if you want to learn more about him after this live stream, please check out the interview that we did with him, where we sat down and talked about his life as both a journalist, kind of in the small community that he lives in, but then also this world of, what do you call it? Cold case YouTube investigation. He has done some tremendous work. He's a fascinating guy. We became fast friends, and he agreed to come on this evening to talk to us about the Mickey Stines case out of Kentucky, a case that blows my mind. This is the one that you've all seen the footage of the deputy back in the judge's chambers. It was Judge Kevin Mullins. And he just pulls out a gun and guns this man down in broad daylight in his judicial chambers. Really frightening stuff. But a lot has come out since then. And Gavin has dug into all of it. And so I wanted to have him on to kind of update us as to everything that's going on in the case, and then talk about some new developments, which is his defense attorney has been all over doing the media circuit, talking about what his defense is going to be. And it looks like it's going to be some sort of a mental health defense, some sort of insanity defense. So we'll talk about that, what that includes, how successful that might be. First up, though, we're going to talk about Rex Heuermann, because he had a hearing today. Some interesting things came out of that I thought was worthwhile for us to discuss. And while we are having that conversation, I'm going to put up a poll that we like to do on Wednesdays, and you guys all seem to enjoy it. And I really like it, because I have a lot of things I would like to talk about, but I would rather hear from you all. What are you most interested in, so that we can use our time wisely? So for the poll this evening, we can either talk about the Menendez brothers, and we might get to more than one of these, but hopefully we'll get to at least one. The Menendez brothers. Gavin Newsom, the governor of the state I live in, California, recently said that they are going to have a parole interview, hearing, whatever you want to call it. And it might be another step towards their possible release, which is incredible, because this case will give you whiplash with the amount of times that it's gone back and forth, thinking they're not going to get released, thinking they have a really good chance, thinking that they have no chance. And now we're back to, it looks like Gavin Newsom wants to hear what the parole board says about them. So we'll talk about what's next. The other case is the missing person case out of the Dominican Republic with this young woman by the name of Sudiksha Konanki. And I hope I'm getting that right. Sudiksha Konanki. Really sad case. She goes missing in the early morning hours, and we'll talk about the investigation, where it's led, where things stand right now, whether or not they have a suspect, how they're treating that suspect, the latest developments in that case. Or the third option is a brand new case to this channel, and a case that just broke recently with the arrest of a woman by the name of Victoria Goodwin. She was married, perhaps is even currently married, to a gentleman by the name of Aaron Goodwin, who became popular if you watch the show Ghost Adventures. He's one of these ghost hunters, I suppose. Well, she tried to contact someone to have him killed. And the person she tried to contact, just to give you a teaser, has a remarkable backstory of their own. And we can talk about that case and what's the latest with that. And like I said, please vote. Please let us know. We will at least get to number one and maybe get to the rest of them if we have enough time. But thank you guys for all being here. Thank you, everyone who's in the chat. Jamie Jane and Farm Girl and Shy Gal 8. Love to see all of you here. Let's jump into Rex Heuermann. What I love about this case, I don't know if love is the right word, but what is fascinating to me about this case is they do these press conferences after they have these hearings. So the hearings are televised. Then they go outside, and both the prosecution and defense are very transparent about answering a lot of questions from the media. And so we have a lot of insight into what this case is and where it's headed. Obviously, if you've been following it, you know this is the so-called Gilgo Beach serial killer. He has now been charged with 7 killings, 7 murders of women whose bodies were found throughout the Gilgo Beach area in Long Beach, in New York. And 2 things came up today, and I'm going to play a video of some news coverage that they did, just to kind of introduce you to the themes that I thought were interesting for us to discuss tonight. So let me go ahead and pop that up there first before we get started.
Serial killer Rex Heuermann returned to court today in Riverhead.
Yeah, Heuermann is accused of 7 murders, which defense lawyers want separated into several trials. They're also calling for the judge to throw out DNA evidence, claiming the lab that did the analysis is not credible. Long Island reporter Shantae Lands has more on today's court appearance from Riverhead.
Accused Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann returns to Suffolk Court for another conference. The Manhattan architect from Massapequa Park and father of 2 is accused of killing 7 of the 10 Gilgo Beach murder victims. All women, mostly sex workers, spanning from 1993 to 2011. Heuermann was charged with first-degree murder in the slayings of Melissa Barthélemy, Amber Costello, and Megan Waterman. He was charged with second-degree murder in the deaths of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, and Sandra Castillo. He pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense team is asking Suffolk Supreme Court Justice Timothy Mazzei to exclude DNA evidence from the case and to try Heuermann for the killings of Barthélemy, Costello, and Waterman separately from the other 4 Gilgo victims. Heuermann's attorney, Michael Brown, says he wants to break up the trial to avoid wrongly convicting him on all 7 slayings.
Each charge must fall or rise on its own, and you never want to use evidence that's unrelated, which would prejudice the jury's determination.
Obviously, we thought that there were good grounds to join the case initially through the grand jury, and we think that that the case should be tried as one case.
The judge set a start date for a Fry hearing to debate which DNA evidence can be admissible in Heuermann's murder trial. His attorneys want the judge to throw out nuclear DNA results obtained from hairs recovered from 6 victims. The DNA match came from a technique called whole genome sequencing, which has never been used in New York State courts.
I also expect that we'll be calling witnesses to support our position and basically indicate that this is not acceptable science, and that's the standard in New York.
This is an application of a very reliable and well-used science that we have to litigate.
The Fry hearing is expected to start in 2 weeks on March 28th. In Riverhead, Shantae Lands, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
All right, there you go. I thought that was just a really nice coverage, kind of introducing the case. If you guys haven't been following it, you understand how important it is. It's, it's rare, I think, that we are able to catch an active serial killer nowadays that has been active for so long. He's been charged with 7 killings. There's more under investigation. They found more remains in that same area, and they think he might be good for it. Not to mention, they're investigating him in other parts of the country where they've had unsolved murders, where they know that he has visited those locations because he was just seen as being so brazen and so prolific and so, what's the word I'm looking for? So obsessed. Just it was like he had an insatiable appetite for killing, and he continued to do it and continued to find a thrill, obviously, from it. So they're looking to maybe charge this man with other murders. But what are they talking about today? First of all, you heard them mention this motion to sever. This is an interesting thing. He's been charged with 7 murders, and his defense attorney, Michael Brown, who I don't fault him for making this argument, though I don't think it's a winning argument, is making the argument that, hey, listen, each of these crimes should stand on their own. And when you charge somebody with 7 different crimes like this, you make it difficult for jurors to distinguish, and they're going to start to find him guilty of, count 1 based on evidence from count 2. Now, that is not an entirely inaccurate point, and it's not an entirely small point. It should be considered, and the judge should weigh this. And what the judge will do is what's called make a decision based on balancing. They want to balance in one hand, you have efficiency and economy and the best use of judicial resources. You have the same person charged. He's charged with the same types of crimes. In other words, we're not talking about financial crimes and, theft type crimes and sex type crimes along with murder. It's all the same types of crimes here, all the similar MO, right? Which will become important later. But then you say, okay, well, then it makes sense to save everybody's time, energy, sweat, and tears to have these all tried together. But you then have to balance that against this prejudicial impact. Is there potential that jurors will do this? Will they improperly, and that's where I want to put the most emphasis, improperly find him guilty on the weaker counts based upon the stronger evidence in the other counts? And why do I highlight that word improperly? Because that is allowed to some extent. You can cross-corroborate evidence. In other words, some of these counts, I imagine, are going to be stronger than others based upon, we already know there's DNA evidence, circumstantial evidence. There's eyewitnesses who are able to place a vehicle that they tied to him at certain locations. So there's going to be some of these crimes, some of these murders that they have just more evidence on, making them stronger, for lack of a better term. Will they say, and this is what would be improper, will they say, I don't know about, this murder of woman number 2. I don't know if they raised their burden, but anybody who would commit murder number 1 is such a bad person that he must have committed murder number 2. That's improper use of this evidence. That is saying, based on the character of somebody who would commit a murder, I believed he committed these other murders, and not independently judging and weighing the evidence in each of those separate crimes, because they are separate crimes. They could find him guilty on some and not guilty on others. In each of those separate crimes, not weighing it independently. But you can, for the purposes of saying, well, it's a similar MO. He always tied the people up. He always dumped them in a certain area. He always contacted the same type of victim. He always contacted them through a certain service. He used, all of these types of things. It's not character evidence at that point. You're not improperly using it. You're using it to show that there is a common plan, a common scheme, a common modus operandi. And that is something that is proper to use. So the judge will weigh all of this and decide, is it better for everyone involved to sever this case or not sever it based upon a balancing of those factors? And now that we got super heated and right into the middle of that whole conversation, I'm going to cut us short because our guest just showed up, and I think we would all rather hear from him. But I promise we will come back to Rex Heuermann, and maybe Gavin will even join us. We'll come back and talk about what the Fry hearing means and what that could mean for the DNA evidence in that case. But without further delay, Gavin Fish, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Josh. How you doing?
I'm doing very, very good. Thank you so
Are
much.
we okay on the audio? I want to make sure I'm not echoey here. We
No,
good?
I hear you. I hear you perfectly fine. I'm sure they'll let us know if we can't. But how are you doing?
I'm good, man. It's been a long day. I spent all day in the gallery of the Clarion County Courtroom #1 today, covering sentencing hearings and plea hearings, which might be the most boring thing that happens in a courthouse. And then ran home to my YouTube channel. It's good to be here, though. It's fun.
So you went from both of your day jobs and now you're here.
That's right. Yep.
Well, thank you so much. I know you just finished your own stream, right?
I did. Yeah.
Oh,
just finished it up.
You're an absolute gem for maintaining the energy. I hope if you drink coffee, you had enough coffee so that you were able to jump on with us. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here.
Good. I'm happy that you're here too, because the case I wanted to talk to you about is a case that I'm fascinated with, and I admit that I have not got into the weeds enough about it, but it's probably one of the more shocking pieces of video that we have seen in a long time, which made it immediately kind of interesting or attractive to people to be like, what the heck happened here? But it's the backstory that we've learned since then that might even be more fascinating. And I don't want to steal too much of the thunder from it, but we're talking about Mickey Stines. He is the sheriff out of Kentucky that has been charged with murdering Judge Kevin Mullins inside of his own chambers. The most recent thing to come out is that his attorney, who we can get into this in a moment, but his attorney's making the rounds. I mean, I saw about a dozen or so different interviews that he's done with anybody who'll put him in front of a camera, talking about how they're going to do this insanity defense. But could you kind of give us some of the background as to what has been coming out as to a possible motive as to what would cause this man to do such a horrible thing in broad daylight?
Yeah, I think I don't know how much you've talked about this yet, but the backstory of all this is that, okay, the video came out showing this man, Mickey Stines, full on just emptying 8 rounds into a judge in his judge's chamber.
Yeah.
Which brings up all sorts of questions. Like, for example, why is there a camera in the judge's chamber? Does anybody even know why that is? Right.
Yeah.
And what has happened is that one of the deputy sheriffs that worked in the courthouse there in Letcher County, who was in charge of the ankle monitoring as kind of a moonlighting gig, he was convicted of SAing some of the women under his charge. Right. So they were in the jail in the basement of the courthouse, and he would be in charge of putting on these ankle monitors, and then he would start propositioning these women to say, hey, I can make it easy on you. You won't even have to wear an ankle monitor if we can work it out. And he was in the judge's chambers. He was SAing these women.
Oh my God.
And he was convicted of that. He is now, a convicted sex offender.
I just thought of this, but do we know if that's on video? Because like you just pointed out, there's videotape in that chambers, and apparently he's doing this in the judge's chambers. Have they talked about whether or not some of that's caught on camera?
So what happened is, once he was convicted, the court was like, maybe we should put a camera in there.
Oh,
because there's weird stuff happening in the judge's chambers. And as two of his victims also said to a state attorney general's investigator that they had seen videos of the judge doing that to women in his chamber. So it appears that it wasn't just, obviously the judge isn't here to defend himself, right? This is
Right.
just the allegation. It was done in a proffer, in a setting where she could just say whatever, right?
Right.
Hearsay was allowed, the whole thing. But um, it appears at least that it wasn't just the deputy. It was a guy named Ben Fields. It wasn't just Deputy Fields. It could have been the judge. And there are rumors throughout Letcher County that this is known to happen, and there are multiple assailants that had been doing that in there. So,
and this is like a small, just so people get the idea, it's a small county where this type of corruption, as outrageous as it sounds, you can almost maybe understand when you get these people who are so powerful. A judge in a very small county has a tremendous amount of power, as opposed to, in a larger area where they might not enjoy this kind of unchecked ability to be this corrupt.
Yeah.
If in fact true.
Yeah. And I mean, it is an artifact of the design of a small place. I mean, I live in a very small place. You could say that there is an old boys club in the place
Right.
that I live in, because there really are just maybe a couple of dozen people that do all the stuff in government,
Right.
in our area. And that seems to be what was happening there. Also in Letcher County, there was, starting in the 1990s, just like a lot of Appalachia, there was a big opioid epidemic passing through the entire area. There are a lot of people that are experiencing, I don't know how to say this, but are interfacing with the criminal justice system that maybe otherwise wouldn't, but if it weren't for their addiction. And these kinds of people that have charges brought up on them, that, when you become addicted to drugs, it's not just the crime. You would know this better than anyone, Josh, but it's not just the crime of using drugs. You have to get the drugs. And so there
Right.
are all sorts of crimes that are tangentially, directly connected to the addiction, right? So these people are in and out of court. They're in and out of jail. There is a huge power imbalance. And in the case of Mr. Fields, he was just like, I'll just tell him that you absconded, that you cut off your ankle monitor. Nobody will believe you. You've got a rap sheet as long as my arm, right? That was kind of the power imbalance there.
Right. Is there an idea, and again, and this is something it's just coming to me, that Mullins, because in these smaller counties and even in bigger counties, there's been allegations of corruption, even in Los Angeles, with these ankle monitoring things, that they become kind of a racket.
They do.
That it's like the judge will assign people to this ankle type of monitoring way more often than probably necessary, because the ankle monitor people are making a bunch of money. And in maybe this case, the ankle monitor guy in charge of it is using it for his own means. And so maybe the judge was in on that or something. Has that been discussed, that like the amount of people on ankle monitors in this county way outdid the amount of people that probably deserve to be on ankle monitors, if you can follow me?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. And the way that they justify their behavior is that they have this tiny little jail and so many people that are committing crimes related mostly to drugs, that they don't have room for them. So they can justify house arrest, they can justify work release, they can justify these GPS ankle monitoring. And in addition, I mean, the devices themselves, I always go to this because I worked in high-end electronics for so long. They've become so easy and cheap to manufacture.
Right.
When these things started, they were literally like a box the size of an old television that was sat in your room, and
ankle around.
Yeah. And now it is GPS enabled, and it's super cheap, and they connect to, I mean, something like 50 satellites at a time. They're amazing. But I know in the county that I live in, we have a jail that was, it was constructed just barely post Civil War. There's like 108 beds in the entire thing, and there's always 200 people that need to be jailed.
Yeah.
So that's how they kind of justify that behavior.
Yeah. Afton makes a good point that no one should profit off of restricting another's freedom. The funny thing about that, though, is that a lot of the defendants are in favor of it because it means they're not in jail, right? So yeah, there is a profit element here that the people, the people who run the ankle monitor outfit want more people on them. But also the defendants, if they have a choice between sitting in jail or having an ankle monitor, are going to choose the ankle monitor any day. So it has its good, but then also has its bad.
Yeah, as long as they can afford it. And in the case of the victims that were in the Letcher County Jail, according to one of them, actually, the proffer of both of them, they both said it was known among the female victims that if you get the ankle monitor, you can afford it as long as you play ball with Mr. Fields. And
Wow.
and this sets the stage for Mickey Stines opening fire on Judge Mullins, because after Fields was convicted, a federal civil rights lawsuit was filed on behalf of two women, two of the three that he was convicted on. And in that lawsuit, they alleged that Mr. Fields' direct supervisor was the sheriff, and he either knew what was happening or should have known what was happening. And so he was deposed in this lawsuit. And I talked to the attorney who is the attorney suing Mr. Fields. His colleague did the deposition, but he said that in the deposition, Mr. Stines was not a normal defendant being deposed. He said typically with law enforcement, they like the fight, they like the argument, they kind of posture themselves in battle mode. And Ned Pillersdorf, who is the attorney, he told me this, that it's just whenever there are cops in there, that they're cops because of the way they behave. But Mickey that day, he said, was behaving strangely, erratically. He was nervous. He was just very unlike Mickey Stines that Mr. Pillersdorf knew. So
and this is during the day of the deposition, you're saying?
This is the day of, Mickey's deposition, and that happened on a Monday. Judge Mullins was shot dead the following Thursday. And what Mickey Stein's lawyer is out saying is that there is a cartel of criminals in Letcher County. These are my words. I'm characterizing what he's saying.
Yeah.
But there's this cartel or this cabal of powerful people in Letcher County that were very nervous that Mickey under oath was going to say something that would get them in trouble. And because of that, says the lawyer, his name is Jeremy Bartley, that Mickey Stines had believed that either his wife and daughter had been kidnapped or they were in danger of being kidnapped. And that is why he was he was having this kind of mental health crisis, which they say leads to him shooting Judge Mullins.
Okay, that is something new that I had not heard, because I knew that somehow the wife and daughter played a role into this whole thing, and I couldn't connect those dots. But now you're saying that at least the lawyer, the story that he's putting forward is that his belief that somehow people were after his wife and daughter led him to be paranoid and then take it out on the judge. There's the missing link.
Yeah.
Why is his paranoia about his wife and daughter lead to him gunning down this judge? And like you pointed out, we didn't show the video, but everybody's seen it. But this is not, I've lost it and I've fired a couple of shots at you. I'm not leaving this room till I know you're dead. I mean, it is incredible. He searches for the man, scrambling around the floor to make sure he puts one last kill shot in him before he leaves the room.
Yep.
Has anyone disclosed, or do we have a theory as to where's the connection between the fear and paranoia for wife and daughter and the judge?
Yeah, so Mr. Bartley hasn't come out directly and has said that he believed that Judge Mullins had his wife and daughter. He hasn't connected those two links in the chain. The implicit link, I think, if we're to just kind of read between the lines, is that Mickey believed and had reason to believe that Judge Mullins was responsible for his wife and daughter having been taken. That in his mind, he believed that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so from the trinklings that his attorney has put out there, there's maybe the idea that the judge was behind the threats against his wife and daughter.
And
okay.
I have to say, like, I really like this lawyer. I don't know what it is about Kentucky, but he's got a lot of chutzpah down there to just say, yeah, I will go on any place that will point a camera at me.
Yeah.
I don't know. That could not happen where I live. That lawyer would be sanctioned so quickly.
Oh, really?
It would just be really, really bad. But I guess down in Kentucky, he is exercising his right to kind of try this in the court of public opinion, I guess.
Yeah, no one seems to be stopping him yet, and I thought it was definitely a deliberate strategic decision, because he hasn't done it before now, and then all of a sudden it's like this media blitz.
Yeah,
and he's just kind of anywhere and everywhere, and I wondered if he finally came to the conclusion that there's not much for him in this case. They're going, usually when somebody goes with a mental health temporary insanity defense, that means you've kind of chicked off all the other defenses, and none of them are working, and so that's what you're left with. And I wonder if he's just arrived at this place where he's like, hey, I'm going all for broke here. But one last question, and I'm curious because this has been floating around. Pete Lola's mom asked this, and I was wondering the same thing. I've heard more than once there was something about him trying to call his daughter in the judge's chambers and then asking for the judge's phone and having the daughter's number already on the phone, that being kind of the triggering moment. And I haven't been able to find anybody to confirm all of that or put that together clearly. And I'm curious if you've run across anything.
Yeah. The second part of that the phone number was programmed into the judge's phone, I don't see in any of the documentation.
Okay.
I haven't heard it in any of the hearings. What I do know is that he called his daughter on his phone. She did not pick up. A phone call was made from the judge's phone to his daughter, and she did pick up. But whether or not that number was programmed into the judge's phone, I think that is a rumor that I haven't been able to find that anywhere.
But you've heard that rumor.
I have.
Yeah, because when I heard that as well, and I feel like I heard it reported somewhere though. Like it wasn't just, I read it on Twitter. It was like, I felt like a news source had reported that. I could be wrong. That's, I think, what it got a lot of people running with. Well, was the judge somehow involved with his daughter or something? And then it started to turn into this, is this man really a hero and we don't know it yet kind of a deal. But I feel like if that were true, now's when we would be hearing it from the lawyer, because he is being so forthcoming about their defense on this.
Yeah. Now the lawyer, Mr. Bartley, like I said, I like him, but one of his, if I could just offer a little bit of criticism of Mr. Bartley, he does not have a poker face at all. So, I watched one interview that he did. I think it was with Anjanette Levy on Law and Crime.
Yeah. And
she was asking him about, have you seen the video of Judge Mullins abusing, somebody, having sex with somebody in his chambers? And he has this grin like, oh yes, I have definitely seen that video. And then he goes, I don't want to disparage the judge, So I think Mr. Bartley would share those kinds of things if they actually were a thing. But I do think that I mean, based on me just reading the face of a man that I would love to play poker with anytime, Judge Mullins was indeed. I mean, I believe that he probably was a part of doing some sexy business in his chambers. I think that probably is true.
And yet that still doesn't get me. And I'm just trying to think about this. Okay, let's see how this all plays out at trial, right?
Yeah.
Let's say somehow they're able to get that in. There's a bunch of hanky-panky been taking place in that courthouse. Everybody's corrupt. Everybody was in on it. This deputy was running a racket. Perhaps the judge was profiting, and I put that in huge quotes, off of that same racket. I still don't see a clear line from, Mickey Stines doing what he did and the connection to all of that. As bad as it all of may have been, it still doesn't. And I'm not even saying that we're going to find something that justifies it, but maybe even explains it. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that link that you're looking for has not shown itself yet.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's why then we're talking about a psych evaluation. Maybe because that link doesn't so clearly exist. Maybe that is why they're left with this kind of defense. Because if you're having a conversation with your client and your client can't connect the dots, then you start to think, well, maybe my client has a problem connecting dots, and that's why we're sitting here.
Yeah, I think so. I Kentucky law, every law is so different, and I'm just a YouTuber out and sitting in my home office in Western PA. Not a lawyer. I've no idea, but it does seem that the defense is going to be that there was some temporary mental health defect. His lawyers claimed that he hadn't slept in days, that he was paranoid, he was showing signs of that paranoia. And I don't know if you noticed, Josh, but in the video of Mickey Stein's shooting Judge Mullins, he, like at the beginning of the video, he didn't draw, point, and fire. He had his sidearm in his hand at his side for a long time before he ever raised it at Judge Mullins.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really questioned, so there's another YouTuber you might want to talk to. Her name is Elizabeth Jones, Hillbilly Crime. She is in Letcher County. She knows Mickey Stines. She knew Judge Mullins. I could sing her praises all night long, but Elizabeth was a person that was addicted to drugs. Well, she is addicted to drugs, but she was in and out of court. She had all sorts of problems. She got her life together. She got a degree and then a graduate degree in criminal justice. She is amazing, and she knows everybody here. But she knows that Judge Mullins is somebody who carried a firearm.
Oh.
So I was kind of wondering, listen, if somebody has taken the gun out of their holster, even if they're holding it at their side, they're brandishing a weapon. They are telling you that they're going to shoot you.
Sure.
And I've wondered this whole time. Now this has nothing about the legal part of this thing, but I've wondered about the relationship between these two folks. Why wouldn't I mean, I'm a person who carries. Like if somebody unholsters a gun, it's a fight.
Yeah.
I don't.
Two interesting things that that I thought of while you were saying that. One, I have often thought that the judge's behavior was also very bizarre too, because you're right. It almost appears, even when the gun is starting to be pointed at him, that he doesn't really think this is real.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like he's like, stop it, Mickey, stop it. You know what I mean? Even in that freeze frame that we have there, that's not like, oh my God, please don't, it's like put the gun away kind of a gesture in my view. It seemed as though he was either nonplussed, not very alarmed by the situation, may have experienced it before almost. You know what I mean? I don't want to go too far with speculation here, but it seemed bizarre to me. Now, listen, I've never had a gun pointed at me. I don't know how I would act. So maybe that was just his honest reaction to the whole thing. But to your point also about how he pulls the gun out and doesn't point it for a period of time, I think it does have a legal element to it, because if they're bringing an insanity defense here, you have to show that someone basically could not appreciate the consequences of their actions in that moment. In other words, it's not that I was so stressed out, I was having a bad day, I just kind of snapped. It's that in that moment I snapped, I was unable to appreciate the nature and quality of what I was doing was either morally or legally wrong. Okay. And that's a very slim definition if you think about it. Well, if you pull a gun and you're holding it by your side, to me, that shows some deliberation in what you're doing, because you're thinking about it before you do it. It's not just a spur of the moment thing. And two, I'm wondering if, knowing that the judge is armed, is he waiting for some sort of reaction out of the judge before he fires? Is he hoping that judge might go for that gun so that he can fire on him and call it a self-defense situation? That just, it seems like there's far more deliberation and appreciation of the situation by him holding the gun by his side.
What a great insight. And yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that at all, either part of what you just said. You know, one of the challenges that I see as a reporter, and you certainly would have seen this being in front of the bar, is that the jury, when they're, and by the way, Josh, you don't know this, but you may not know this, I served on a jury for a double homicide once.
No.
Yeah,
Wow.
a long time ago.
Wow.
And, you know, when the judge is giving instructions on very complex legal doctrines, we have no idea. Like, we have no idea. And I can see it in the jury's faces. Like, let's talk about the reasonable person standard. And let's talk about, let's talk about malice aforethought. And there is no amount of time that is. Yeah. So I wonder, like what you just said, would that be something that would resonate with a jury? The argument that, hey, he was looking to pick a fight here. He was waiting for the judge to draw on him so he could claim self-defense.
Yeah.
Or saying, this is some sort of pre-planning because he unholstered for a certain amount of time. Would a jury go, oh yeah, I get that? Or would it just go right over him? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think when you arrive as a defense attorney at the point where you're talking about a mental health insanity defense, you've exhausted all your other defenses. And I preface that point by saying it's probably not the greatest defense, and it's probably just all that they're left with, because the more you break down, just even seeing the video without hearing the backstory, without hearing even the audio, this does not look like a person who snapped in a moment of insanity. It looks very, like I said, like he's deliberating, like he's thinking, like he's wondering, is he really going to do it before he actually does it? And then to the point that we made earlier, it's not 2 or 3 shots and he runs out of the room crying and bawling. It's he
changing around. Positions.
Yeah. Did I get you? Are you still moving? I mean, isn't there even a moment too where he pauses before he leaves to look back to see and fire another shot?
Yes, that's right. The door is open. He was leaving. He looks back. Oh, wait a minute. No, let's get down a little lower. Pew. Yeah. It was one of those things. About the insanity defense, I have a question about this, because I feel like, a mental illness or an insanity defense is something that juries probably tend to not believe. I mean, in this past October, I sat and reported on a murder that had video evidence and of this guy. I mean, the defendant in some of the body cam footage was so just gone.
Mm-hmm.
And in the jail, they couldn't get him to put clothing on for like 2 weeks, and he was using his own feces to draw on things, and he had a 20-year diagnosis of schizophrenia disorder, and still the jury did not in fact, they weren't even given they could either find him not guilty by reason of legal insanity, guilty, or guilty but mentally ill. Like, they had 4 choices that they could choose there. And I sat through the whole trial, and man, if there was a poster child for mental illness, this guy was it. And the jury came back with a straight guilty.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think jurors, they feel like it's somebody trying to pull a fast one on them. I think they feel like it's like, you did this horrible thing and now you're going to tell us that you're crazy. But I mean, I think that it exists for a good reason, and probably for the type of case that you just explained. I mean, there are some people who have become so untethered to reality and have demonstrated that for a history in their life, that they don't appreciate what they're doing. Whenever it comes up, it's a very, very interesting. Oh my goodness, Mama She, thank you so much. Really sad.
She's
and
taking
scary.
care of you.
I know. I was scammed yesterday. No sheriff's office will call on a warrant for failure to appear for federal grand jury. Just beware. That sounds like some scary stuff that you're dealing with. Sorry about that, but thank you so much for the chat there. But these mental health cases, they're not all that common. First of all, the judges will even allow them to do it. I've been able to work on a couple, and it's funny because as much of a legal argument as you're trying to make, I think jurors do a gut check more than anything else. I had a case where a man killed his father and said that he was being guided by celestial forces to do it or something. Okay. So obviously, if he's to be believed, obviously dealing with, not dealing with the real world, obviously dealing with some mental health issues, everything else. But our point in that case was that doesn't matter, because he still knew that the killing was a bad thing to do. So even if he felt that his father was the angel of darkness, he still knew killing was a bad thing, even if he was doing it for the right reason. Do you follow the kind of nuance here?
Yeah.
And we thought we made that argument successfully, but we did not. The jurors felt otherwise, because I think they make a gut check. They say, that just sounds crazy to me,
The process of deliberating in a jury, from my personal experience, having done it one time. So I don't have a really good data sample here, right? Done it one time, but I went into it as a theater nerd thinking 12 Angry Men. Hey, we're going to really hash this out. And this is going to be a thoughtful deliberation, and we're going to come to the right conclusion. But what it ends up being is a negotiation. That's what it that's what it was for us. Right. So I had our defendant was a young man at the age of 17 being tried as an adult for shooting 2 rival gang members. And we had this long negotiation of, trying to understand what is premeditated and what isn't. So making it first degree or second degree. And it was like a week-long negotiation of, okay, I can live with this. Can you live with this? That kind of thing. So I almost think that juries, it would be better. I mean, far be it from me to question our founding fathers who were all brilliant, but it'd almost be better if we had legal scholars on a jury.
I know. People bring this up all the time. We should have professional jurors, people who are just paid and they understand the law and they this is what they do for a living. Listen, I spend my entire career dealing with and trying to understand what jurors are thinking and how they're thinking it. I mean, the favorite pastime of a trial attorney is trying to read the tea leaves of what jurors are possibly thinking about. And as much as you'd want to hope that they're not doing that, just compromising on things, there's a reason why I think most verdicts come in on a Friday, right? I mean, people are going to wheel and deal when they have to. Do they have to come back after the weekend or not?
That is exactly right. On the jury that I was in, it was the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, and some of us like had travel plans.
Yeah, yeah.
So
People want to be
that's when
done.
everybody's like, okay, we're going to get
Yeah.
this done today.
I mean, and part of me can't blame them for it. It's like, we're asking a lot of these people. Tio Toys Phil brings up a good question. Did he know there was a camera? Do we know that, or did he forget about it? Was he aware that it was there? Because it is, brazen. It's the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to hear gunshots, and then he's on camera. It's not like this man was trying to get away with it.
Yeah, well, if he didn't know about the camera in the judge's chambers, I've got to believe that he did. Now his office was not in the courthouse. It was in a building, across, it was like kitty corner from the courthouse. But he spent years as this judge's bailiff.
Yeah.
Like they were good friends. They knew each other really well. Is it possible that he didn't know that there was a camera in there? I don't know. He was involved in a lawsuit about his deputy having done stuff in there.
And it's a small, like you said, small
town.
Courthouse, small town. I can't imagine he wouldn't know either. To your point, Dr. Bullbutter asks, they just had lunch. And like you said, they were friends. What could have triggered it? I heard this thing. Do we know the timing between when they had lunch and when the shooting took place?
It was a couple hours.
I mean, that's incredible, though.
Because
that's such
prior to the judge and the sheriff being alone in the courtroom, they had a meeting with other members of like the community in there. There's video that has come out that is this exact same view, with Mickey sitting in the chair that he's standing closest to, another person sitting in the other chair, another person sitting on the windowsill. Right. So they had just had this, they had gone to lunch together. They'd come back to the courthouse. They were talking about whatever. I mean, the Judge Mullins, here's the thing is that people are complicated, right? So if Judge Mullins was doing bad things, he was also doing really good things in the community, especially in the community that he dealt with in court. He was working hard to get people who are addicted to drugs off of drugs, stable employment, out of the criminal lifestyle. So I think they were having that kind of meeting because it was with, that crew. They're all working on that stuff.
I've seen that video too. And it's, do we know, is there no audio, or have they just
no audio?
There's no audio. But when you watch it again, you don't get the indication that tempers are flying or anything, right? I mean, there doesn't seem to be, you don't watch it as if this is the precursor to something this horrific happening later on.
Yeah. No chairs flipped over.
No.
Yeah. No, like sweaty armpit, stains or whatever. Yeah. This is, and I think that might be what makes this case just so compelling, is it's just so matter of fact. He stands up, he has his sidearm at his side in his hand, and then he just decides to raise it and he fires 8 times and connects 8 times.
Oh my God. Afton asks a great question. Does this defense mean that he has to testify? And the answer is no. He can, obviously any defendant can, but what this will come down to, if this is the defense they go into, is it's going to be a battle of experts. They're going to have him evaluated, which is what's going to come next. The prosecution experts will probably say that he's suffered from no prior, we don't have any evidence that he was diagnosed with anything or taking any kind of medication or anything like that, right? That we've heard of just yet. Right. So they're going to say he's got no history. He's got no reason for this psychotic type of break. And I've interviewed him, and nothing about what he tells me leads me to believe he was having a psychotic break, or even worse yet, I believe he's malingering as to any kind of psychosis at this time. And the defense experts will say just the opposite, that that's in fact what he was suffering from. And it'll come down to kind of a gut call from the jurors. But that brings me to kind of one of my last points on this, is that do we we're going to have this psych eval. What's next for the case? Are there other developments coming along, or is this kind of chugging along? Has there been a trial date set?
There's not been a trial date set yet. And Mr. Bartley said in an interview recently that, first of all, he's asking for a mental health evaluation. The court said we should do a competency evaluation at the same time, to which the Bartley team said, we're not challenging competency. He is competent. Let's just get the mental health evaluation. Now, he brought up in an interview pretty recently that in that area of Kentucky, there's an 18-month backlog for these mental health evaluations. So his client could be sitting there in jail for another year and a half before he's even seen. And that's actually the reason that Mr. Bartley said he brought it up in the first conference, is just, we really need to get this going because of this backlog.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, there you go. This thing could be dragging on for forever.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Incredible. Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to, I don't think there's an incentive for him to plead this one out. He's caught on video. It's not a whodunit, right? It's a why'd you do it? So I think this one does make it to trial.
Well, and I think too, they're not going to do anything till they get that mental health evaluation. If it comes back favorably for them, sure. But if it doesn't, then, maybe then they start to entertain some sort of plea negotiation. But until they get that, I don't think he listens to anything. God, I think I felt like I had one more point on this whole thing, but yeah, just a remarkable case, because everything we know about him background wise, I mean, I haven't heard anybody say that he was tied up in this whole kind of pay for play scam, or that he's got a dirty background and dirty history. It sounds like he was an okay guy, got deposed. I know he's a supervising sheriff. But I mean, is there other stuff that we're learning about him?
Well, one of the things that I wondered about is if he believed that other people were concerned that he was going to let something out in the deposition, that implies that he knows something that he could let out in the deposition. So whether or not he was a part of what was going on, it appears that they're admitting that he knew to what was going on. But that's just some kind of implication that I'm reading into.
Have you seen the video of when he's being arrested and he's with the other deputies and they're putting him into a squad car?
Yeah.
It's just his demeanor is just remarkable to me. He's very polite. He's very, they're being polite to him. It's just, it seems as though he's being arrested for evading parking tickets, not for just having committed first-degree murder.
Yeah, I actually, when I see videos like that, it actually gives me a little bit of hope that there are, and it's not hope, that the vast majority of cops are professional. They don't, that's what those cops should be doing. They should be acting professionally, not doing anything toward their victim. I did like the state police officer who was trying to get him to talk in the cruiser, right? He was doing everything he could to get him to talk, but Mickey not answering those questions kind of shows me that he was in his right mind. He knew that he shouldn't be saying anything in there. And it almost felt like an act. Where are you taking me? This is not the way to the jail, kind of sounding paranoid, but at the same time knowing, like, being aware enough that I don't want to, implicate myself in anything.
Yeah. If he had a psychotic break, it was a very short break.
It was very short.
It was, post lunch, but before his arrest. It was the only time that he really lost his mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And the camera's outside the court where he was just kind of wandering around.
Yeah. Too. Not any particular, Gavin, this has been really enjoyable. I thank you so much for all the for working hard today at your day job, going and doing your own channel, and then hopping on here and still having the time and energy to share some thoughts with us. Thank you so much. Do you have any things you'd like to share with everyone? Stuff you've got coming up, shows you've got coming up that you want everybody to check out?
Man, thanks for the opportunity for the plug. I appreciate that. I would just say, if you like what it is that I do, check me out on YouTube. You can go to gavinfish.com, see the cases that I'm covering. And I like to do really good deep dives. And Josh, I really enjoy talking to you. I like somebody who knows what they're talking about. I'm just some like no bona fides talking head, but it's really nice to talk to somebody who's been there.
I appreciate that. And if you guys, I encourage you guys, it's a plug for us, but I also encourage you to watch the interview that we did. I really enjoyed that. A lot of people responded very favorably to it, and you have a very interesting story. So I appreciate that again.
Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, my friend. Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
What a great guy. He's so awesome. I'm so glad that he was able to do that. And we were able to make that work. I can understand how tired he must be and still be able to bring the goods for us. So thank you guys for being so supportive of him while he was here. All right. Thank you, Miss Deanna, for those kind words. We will try to have him on more. He does some real in-depth stuff, and whenever we come across a case that we're like, who knows about this, and Gavin knows about it, we're going to try to have him on. Oh yeah, make sure that everybody votes in the poll. I'm going to finish talking about Rex Heuermann, and then we'll jump into our poll and see what you guys wanted to hear. But just to pick up briefly where we were at, so in summary, I do not think they're going to sever this case. I think that when it comes down to it, the judge is going to feel that there's just far more efficiency in having all of these done together, and whatever prejudice may exist is something that will be able to be handled without over prejudicing, people using the evidence in a improper way. In other words, convicting him of very weak crimes based upon the idea that they feel that he committed another crime, and therefore it's a character case. I don't believe that's going to happen at all. In fact, more than anything, I think that the crossover, if any exists between these cases, is entirely admissible type of crossover. It has to do with common plan, modus operandi, all of these types of things that you can use a series of different crimes to help people prove one of the crimes. I mean, think about it. Take murder out of it. Talk about a string of armed robberies. I had a case one time where it was a string of armed robberies, and the defendant, the suspect, you wore the same bright colored pink tennis shoes. And believe me, we talked about the bright colored pink tennis shoes with every single case. And yeah, that is them using evidence from other crimes and helping them to decide whether or not they committed another crime. But that's totally acceptable because you're using a common plan, a common scheme, modus operandi, all those acceptable reasons. But the Fry hearing is really the one here that I think is most interesting, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to challenge the science behind the DNA. And in getting into this, I learned something that I guess I knew before, but I wasn't quite sure of, but I learned something new. We'll put it that way, about the standard for the admissibility of different types of experts in different jurisdictions. And it is different. It is a different standard, which is a little troubling, but this is the way it works when you've got different states that are different governments. In each state, there's two controlling cases. One is the case of Fry, which is what they're talking about here in New York, and the other is the case of Daubert, which you all have probably heard that name before. There's a case being handled out of Massachusetts, Karen Reed, where they're having a bunch of Daubert hearings to do with dog bites and cell phone examination. That is the controlling case in Massachusetts, is Daubert. Where I practice in California, we go by what's called the Kelly-Fry standard. Fry is the Supreme Court case. Kelly is the California case that talks about it and adapts it and kind of tweaks it. So basically, you're dealing with these two cases here. What is interesting is Daubert is a Supreme Court case, but it did not overrule Fry, but only on the federal level. In other words, Daubert controls and overruled Fry only for federal courts. So the state courts are still free to apply their own standard, just to confuse everyone further. So what you're dealing with here is in New York, they go by the Fry standard, not by the Daubert standard. The difference between these two is, in most cases, I think not all that important, but in a case like Heuermann might become important. And what they're dealing with is basically it's the idea of how do the courts, in the simplest terms, how do the courts keep out junk science? I think that's what it really comes down to. You're not going to see a lot of quibbling when it comes to an incredibly established type of science, blood typing. I don't know what else that would apply to this. Certainly the type of DNA that we use now that's been established. But Heuermann is dealing with, it's not new, but it's not as common, which is called whole genome sequencing, is what they did in some of these instances here where the hairs found on the victims. Okay, the standard in Fry focuses on general acceptance in the scientific community. Okay, so in other words, we're not going to allow in, and I think Fry was actually considering lie detector tests. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if I am. But is this something that's generally accepted in the scientific community? If it is, then it's fine. And if it's not, then it's kept out. And that's what Fry basically does. Fry is more restrictive to the science because it has to be generally accepted. Daubert is more about relevance and reliability, and it gives the judge more of a gatekeeping function, okay? Because it allows the judge to consider certain factors that broaden the ability for different types of evidence over Fry, you could argue. The factors, and we talked about this in a video that we did before, but they can be, one of the factors is the technique can be tested for reliability, that it's subject to peer review, that that it has what is the potential rate of error, the existence of standards, all of these things, in addition to, is it generally accepted? But basically what it comes down to is that a case like we're dealing with here, where we're talking about whole genome sequencing, which has not been apparently used in the state of New York in a criminal case before, would a judge using the Daubert standard and applying all these factors found that it could be something that could be admitted? That answer to that question is probably an easier yes than if the question is under Fry, because now it comes down to the question of, is it generally accepted? Well, the defense is arguing, no, it's not, because we don't have a case here that's ever used it. Therefore, how could it possibly be generally accepted? And if you remember in the video that we played, when we began this whole discussion, the prosecution, however, in that press conference is focusing on things like scientific, in other words, generally accepted can be things outside of just whether or not it's been used in court before. Judicial decisions can be helpful, but how about scientific publications? How about practical applications? And that's why he talked about things like it's been used to track down, it's been used in health circumstances, and it's been used in trying to identify, war. I think he said he identified unidentified soldiers, and being able to, used in a scientific context outside of the criminal world. This is my long-winded way of saying, if the judge believes that though whole genome sequencing has not been used in New York in a criminal context before, as long as in the scientific community at large, it is generally accepted as being reliable, then it's going to pass Fry. I'll take a deep breath. we'll answer some questions on that if you guys have it. But basically what it all comes down to here is the defense realizes this is now the best that they can do is try to keep out some of this DNA, try to break this case up. And whether or not they have good chances on any of this, I think is probably slim at best. But let me see if do we have any questions on this one, Kaylin? I know we talked about it a while ago. Let me see. Oh, here's an interesting one. Maureen says, Josh, things were probably different when you were a prosecutor in LA, but are you surprised at how much attorneys speak to the media before and during trials? I'm certainly surprised by the prosecution doing it when I was a DA, and I think that's still kind of the way it operates, at least out of LA, is we were scared to death of talking to the media. We had a media relations person who would do all the talking for us, and our basic stance was we don't talk about stuff that's not been tried yet. We will wait for the courtroom to do our talking. But it does seem, Maureen, and I agree with you, just anecdotally, it seems like certainly defense attorneys have probably always been that way, but prosecutors are becoming much more inclined to step in front of microphones when they have the opportunity to talk about cases. Is that good? I think yes. Transparency is always nice. Is that bad in that we're probably affecting potential jurors? Also yes. Let me see. What is the benefit? Blue Giraffes, love that name, says, what is the benefit to the defense to try each case separately? Well, I think it comes back to that whole idea that, hey, some of these might be weaker than others, and maybe we got a better shot of taking a weak case and maybe getting an NG on a weak case or a hung jury on a weak case than we do in putting them all together, and maybe they sweep the table with all of the charges. But you're right, Blue Giraffes, is, even if they lose on one case, there's still 6 other cases that they've got to deal with. I mean, end of the day, these are starting to become a little bit of desperate motions. I don't mean that that's bad. I mean that that's expected of the defense attorney, but even if granted, I don't think this is going to change the outcome of this. And I don't think they will be granted at the end of the day either. All right. I'm going to look for if we got any other questions, but in the meantime, I have a question for you, Kaylin. Do we have a winner of our poll? %35% Victoria Goodwin. All right. That's a good one. Let's get into that. Victoria Goodwin. This is a new one. Stuff is still kind of coming out about this. I just started to dive into it today. Tiffany loves it. I'll put it that way. Tiffany was all about this case. She was texting me throughout the day like, you're never going to believe X, Y, and Z on this case. So she's thrilled that we're talking about it. But here's basically what took place. Victoria Goodwin was married to a man by the name of, oh, wow, really? We've got a tie. Okay, we'll do both of them. Let's talk about Victoria first, because I'm already getting into it. She was arrested last Thursday in Las Vegas for conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation to commit murder of her husband, Aaron Goodwin, who we'll put up the picture of this man now. Aaron Goodwin, who is famous-ish for playing a part on the show Ghost Adventures. And there he is looking for ghosts right there. Apparently the marriage was not going so well from Victoria's perspective. And Victoria, this is the incredible part of it. It's incredible, first of all, to want to contact someone to have your husband killed. Add on top of that, it's incredible to contact a stranger to want to have your husband killed. Add on top of that, it's pretty incredible that the stranger you want to contact is a convicted felon in prison for murder at the time that you contact him. And it's add to all that madness that the reason you found this person who you feel that can be helpful to you in killing your own husband is because you saw them on a documentary themselves. So Grant Amato, whose picture we just put up there, was the subject of a docuseries on Paramount Plus called Control Alt Desire. And you got to imagine that whatever intern came up with that title is still patting themselves on the back for that. I have not seen this documentary, but Victoria watched this documentary and she saw, hey, this person who, by the way, was convicted for first-degree murder in 2019 for shooting their father, mother, and brother, this genius, this wonderful person, after having stolen, this is so great, stolen over $200,000 from their family. And the way to cover that up was to kill their father, mother, and brother. And what did Grant spend the $200,000 on? He spent it on a webcam model. So there's some webcam model out there who's $200,000 richer because Grant Amato stole the money from his family, then killed his entire family, and then was the subject of Control Alt Desire on Paramount. Yeah, it's nuts, Joy. I have not seen Control Alt Desire, but I got to tell you now, I feel like I have to watch it. Well, Victoria watched it. She thought that guy sounds like a smart guy to me. He probably knows how to get some killing done. I'm going to contact him. So she literally starts as pen pals with Grant. This is all the allegations, by the way. In beginning her conversations and relationships with Grant, somehow, and it was unclear to me whether or not she snuck him the phone, but somehow Grant gets a hold of a contraband phone while in custody and starts texting with Victoria under the pseudonym of Victoria Candy. And some of those text messages have been released, and they include things like her saying to Grant, "Am I a bad person because I choose to end his existence," speaking about her husband, Aaron, not divorce. And I just thought the kind of evil and diabolical you have to get to arrive at the point where you're asking a person who's already annihilated their own family to validate that you're not a bad person because you feel that you want to, quote unquote, end the existence of your husband rather than get a divorce. I mean, we talk about this all the time on this channel, that why do these people make this decision? Just go get the divorce. She's thought about it, and it's just not worth it to her. But she would rather have Grant, the guy who murdered his whole family, tell her that she's still not a bad person because she wants him dead. Then she agrees that somehow Grant is going to orchestrate this whole thing. The agreed upon price is $11,000. Seems like cheap for murder to me. And he, at one point, one of the text messages that was also revealed is that he says at one point that someone, quote, who will be taking care of the situation will contact him once the deed is done. His phone is discovered when they search the phone. I think his phone is discovered before they even know about the plot. I think they're just tossing his prison cell and they find the phone. It's contraband. They confiscate it. The prison guards go through it and they find this entire conversation. And then Victoria ends up getting arrested and has now been charged with conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation to commit murder. And that case is happening out of Las Vegas. And, you know, she's looking at spending the better part of her life in prison over this whole thing. So her defense, I will say, is that the Grant is delusional. He's making this all up. It's all make-believe. He's role-playing, whatever else you want to call it. But it's a really fascinating, and you can see why now. Tiffany was all juiced about it. You were juiced, right, Tiff? She was all juiced about this case earlier today because it is just crazier and crazier and crazier. So she will probably be joining the Paramount Plus docuseries club after this whole case plays out for her as well. Let's get to with the final few minutes that we have left. Sudiksha Konanki. Am I saying that right? I really hope that I am. I hate when I don't pronounce people's names correctly. Sudiksha Konanki. She went missing, and it's a really tragic case. She was on spring break with a bunch of friends down in the Dominican Republic at a place called the Punta Cana Resort. And I'm going to show you some surveillance. Let's go ahead and play. Let me just play this surveillance for you guys really quick so that you can see. Because, well, let me say this first. She goes missing. They cannot find her. They still have not been able to find her. And so now an investigation is being done to try to track down her final moments and see who she was with. And one of the things that they recently revealed is this bit of videotape that I'm going to show to you guys now. What happened here? Hold on. There we go. There's no audio, by the way. That, I believe, the last two people that you see in frame there, I'm going to play it one more time just so I'll try to pause it at the point that I'm talking about. But there's one person that you see, and there's more video of this. This is late at night, like 4 o'clock in the morning. Her and all her friends, along with this gentleman here. So these two people, if you can see my cursor, this gentleman here, and that is Sudiksha. They believe that this is a person of interest. And we're not going to say his name because I have not, the credible reports I've seen say that he's unnamed, but apparently his name is floating around there now. But the story goes that they were out late at night at clubs. It's spring break. You can imagine they're all drinking heavily. They return home or return back to their resort at around 4 a.m. And everybody gets the idea that let's go down to the beach and let's go swimming. Redondo Beach says, my husband, who is on the air in Los Angeles, doesn't think he's a bad person despite him trying to kill me in front of my kids. I'm so sorry to hear that, Redondo. That is awful. Thank you for sharing that with us. But at 4 a.m., they decide to go down to the beach. And there's video, and all of these timetables I'm giving you are being revealed from video. They then see the friends all return back from the beach at around 5:55 a.m. So there's close to 2 hours where everyone is believed to be together down at the beach. But this one gentleman here stays back. And he has been interviewed. And he says that they decided to get into the water. They were caught by a big wave. He was able to struggle ashore, and he's so intoxicated. And there's that picture of him and her. I don't know if this is the picture with them going off alone or what, but he comes out of the ocean, struggles to get out of the ocean, and immediately throws up and passes out. And when he comes to, she's no longer around and he can't find her. He then returns to the resort at 8:55 a.m. So 3 hours later. So we don't know, has he been passed out for 3 hours? The other thing we don't know, and I'm just going to say this, he is not a suspect. But the other thing we don't know is he's the only person that actually does know what took place. And this is the story that he's giving. So he is not a quote unquote suspect, but I am sure that this is still under investigation. And if they ever find her body, I pray to God that they do. I pray to God that this is not a horrible story, but it sounds like it's turning out to be that way. If they ever find her body, perhaps that will change the scope of their investigation. But as things stand right now, from everything that they know, they cannot find her. She may have drowned, and it looks like it all may have been a tragedy. But again, this is one of those situations where the only person who really knows were those two people, and only one of them is surviving. And what how can what he is saying be corroborated? I mean, I imagine, them returning at 4 a.m. from nightclubs. They've probably been drinking all day long. They probably all were incredibly intoxicated. I've heard also some information. I know there is definitely Natalie Holloway vibes on this whole thing. That's why I'm saying we don't know where this is all going to lead. Any way it ends up, it's an absolute tragedy for her and her family. But it could be as sad as she just was not able to fight the current. There's been some reporting that the current was bad that time in her intoxicated state. Or it could be something as awful as he had something to do with it. We don't know. And that's also kind of part of the reason why I don't really want to say his name or show his picture is I don't know if this young man was just wrong place, wrong time, horrible thing happened, or if he somehow was involved. But we will continue to follow it and try to find out. But it's really, really very sad. Anyhow, guys, I think that's where we end up this evening. This has been, again, fantastic. You guys are all wonderful. Stick around, though, because I do have some quick announcements for you. First of all, if you missed it, on Monday, we had our latest episode in our Courtroom Confidential conversation series. That was with Candace DeLong. She is a former FBI profiler. She is a badass. Just lived a life, man. She was a nurse, a psychiatric nurse for many, many years. And then the FBI approached her and says, we would like to make you a special agent. And this was back in the days when there were not many women as special agents. And then she got into the behavioral science unit and started being a profiler along with John Douglas. She's very, very fascinating background in life, and then got into the world of documentaries and media and television. And now she does the podcast Killer Psyche, which is fantastic. I have been lucky enough to be a guest on her podcast a few times, and I always enjoy it. Next Monday, we are taking a break from the conversations. We're kind of taking a breather, gathering ourselves, and that's because we've got some really big ones coming up for you, and we're working on those, and we want those to be as good as they possibly can. But on Monday, we're not quite sure what we're going to do. So stay tuned. We might just do a live stream. We might skip it all together. I'm not quite sure, but we will keep you guys informed. This Saturday, as always, is our weekly roundup, and it's now going to be a live premiere, as it has been for the last couple of weeks. So starting at 6 a.m. Pacific, if you guys are early risers on the West Coast, or 9 a.m. Eastern, join us 30 minutes. Join us in the live chat to talk about it. She's going to make me go live. We miss you all too much. And if you guys know, I just do everything that I'm told because that just makes life easier for me. So Tiffany's telling you already, we're going to go live. But the big thing happening this weekend is we got Sunday Fun Day this weekend. This Sunday, we are going to be taking more of your questions. This has become one of my favorite things that we do. The questions that we get from all of you are incredible. They are insightful. They're stuff I never would have thought about talking about. They run the gamut from, going all the way back to Charlie Manson to cases that we're talking about now. They've revealed new cases I haven't even heard of. And you guys have really, really great questions. You have great questions whenever we do the chat, but on these voice messages, I really enjoy them. Alicia K. Mayo, I'm looking forward to hearing your question. Always a highlight of Sunday Fun Day. So please, guys, check it out. Hey, I can hear you all right now saying how I would love to. Josh, I would love to. how can I possibly participate in Sunday Fun Day? Well, what is going on here? Why does this keep happening to me? Hold on. Kaylin's shaking her head at me. All you have to do is go to thecourtroomconfidential.com and go right over here to the tab that says send a voice message. Click on that button and then just start recording. You get about, what is it, a minute and a half. Let us know what's on your mind. What is a question you have that's been eating you up? What is a story you want to tell us? Just tell us, that you appreciate hearing from the channel, or tell us that Josh is too long-winded. Whatever you want to say, leave us a voice message, and we're going to get to it this Sunday. I would love to have as many messages as you guys could possibly leave us, because it absolutely makes the show. So that is this Sunday, is another newest episode in our Sunday Fun Day. Let me say thank you to some of our newest members, including folks that even joined this evening. We have Desert Rose, Jennifer Hardy, AC, Janine J, Alexis North, Trish Norman, Valerie, Mimi's Love, Buzzcat, Hound Doggy, and even this evening, Helen Butterfield. You guys are all fantastic. Thank you so much for taking part in our membership program. If you want to learn about the membership program, we'll then go to courtroomconfidential.com and click on become a member, and you can hear all of the benefits. And Kaylin and Tiffany put a lot of work into making sure that our membership program is something special and that it's well worth your time and energy. And then finally, we're working on more merch, but one thing we would love to do is, if you have purchased stuff, take a picture, send it to us, email it to media@courtroomconfidential or media@joshuaritter.com, right? media@joshuaritter.com. Send us the picture, and we'll share it with everybody just to see how snazzy everyone looks in their Courtroom Confidential gear. In the meantime, though, thank you again to Gavin Fish. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. This has been wonderful. Always enjoy it. You guys are all fantastic, and we will be talking to you all again soon. Take care, everybody.